All right, I believe we are live. Um,
Looks like it.
I think so. It just says we lost our connection. I think we lost our connection to our page, but I think everything else is good. So, anyhow, good morning and welcome to another episode of the Saved and Sassy podcast with myself, Randy Mendez, and my co host, Crystal Riley. Crystal, today we are going to be talking about FOMO freedom. Maybe a little bit easier said is freedom from the fear of missing out. And so a lot of times I think that this can be obviously like missing out on what's happening in life or people, almost like keeping up with the Joneses mentality. But today we're going to be talking about it a little bit differently. And we're going to be talking about it as career centric women and really the fear of missing out on opportunities. Um, and so, Crystal, often, like most of our podcast episodes, they are ripped from the real lives of Randy and Crystal.
Surprise!
Yeah, and so I recently had, it's absolutely unequivocally a missed opportunity, right? I always like to say though, when it comes to things that we don't know what God is preparing us for or protecting us from, but can we talk about the fact that as much as we can know that, when the moment hits, especially in business, and it's like the opportunity to be extremely successful with maybe somebody you want to, or to make tens of thousands of dollars, or to advance to that next level, or whatever it is, when that actually goes through your fingers, it feels a little bit different, no matter how much we know that God might be protecting us or preparing us for something else, right?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, we have, I mean, yeah, we have a lot of different opportunities in summer mist, and it's just like having God's, angel wings around us, right, all the
Right.
time. Say like we're running late for an appointment, and we go to take one way, and there's an accident or whatever. But if we go the other way, there's all kinds
Right.
of things that God does to protect us, and surrendering that to Him, I think, is much easier said than done, right?
Did you, well, that makes me think of, like, do you remember 9/11? Obviously you remember 9/11, but there was like a
No, I
little
don't. I wasn't born yet.
there was like a little
Just
thing though.
kidding.
I know you are kidding. Hence the sassy. Anyhow, there was a little thing that went around that was like, show me, if there's a God, then show me where he was on 9/11. And I remember reading it, and it was like he was giving the people the strength to overtake, the pilot, one of the hijacked pilots, like all these places he was, right? And so to your point, we never, I mean, there's so much he's doing behind the scenes that we don't know. He's that master
Mhm.
peacemaker. And so I kind of just wanted to, I took a little note, couple little notes to help us to focus. So John 4:35 talks about, behold, I say to you, lift up your eyes and look to the fields, for they are ready for harvest. And then another thing I want to talk about is, God being the ultimate restorer and able to restore any missed opportunities. But here's something powerful that I went to church yesterday, and it was actually our pastor's wife giving the sermon. And there was one key component she said that just hit here, Crystal. It just hit, which, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember exactly how she said it, but it was something to the effect of, like, missing a worldly opportunity is a bummer. It's a bummer. Missing that career advancement, that money making opportunity, that's a bummer. But missing the opportunity to have a relationship with Jesus is like, it's missing. It's not even comparable, right? I can't even come up with
Well, it's
words.
detrimental. I mean, yeah.
Right. But I think so, but I sat with that, Crystal, because here's my thing is, like, I have a relationship with Jesus, right? So, but what she was talking about is like, waste. So how quick, I was very quick to immediately evaluate all the things I did wrong. Like, okay, this person called me, they explained to me why for their life and why for their current stage of life they feel like they need to go a different path. um and I will say I was really thankful that God allowed me to genuinely be happy for them and they're choosing, even though it meant that they're choosing the path I laid out in front of them, just not in alignment with me, right? And I was genuinely happy for them. But here's the thing. I immediately went into that mindset of, what could I have done different? How, like, all of the negative things. What did I do wrong? What could I have done different? Um, Not too much, thankfully. I'm a good work in progress, and to God's glory, not mine. The like, oh great, somebody else is going to get this benefit. That wasn't an emotion. Like, I've moved past that, right? But what she was talking about, Crystal, was really like sitting intentionally quietly at the feet of Jesus. And what she was actually talking about was the other Mary, and how Mary's sister, was it Martha? I'm drawing a blank today.
Mhm.
But how she would
Martha.
complain because she was always busy working and she was doing all the things on her to-do list and she was going, going, going. And she actually said to Jesus, like, can you make her help me? And so I had to chuck for a second because I was like, look, Mom, it's us. Like my mom's always going, 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 and I'm sitting, but then conviction set in, and I'm like, I'm not sitting at the feet of Jesus, right? Like I'm not sitting at the
Mm.
feet of Jesus when I'm not helping. I need to get my butt up, right? But to what my point is, Crystal, is that the gist of it is that even if you don't achieve anything in life, but what you do is you spend time intentionally and you sit at the feet of Jesus, that's never going to be waste. That's never going to go by the wayside. And
Mhm.
so the conviction that came over me was really, how many times do we evaluate and then go for the rebound when it comes to our career, or we're willing to do it again, or we're willing to, go for it again, and we don't continually go for that time with Jesus. And so I just wanted to talk about like those missed opportunities, but really what are the opportunities that matter?
Well, I mean, I think the opportunities that matter is what are the fruits of the spirit? What are the fruits that we're producing? Where are the seeds that we're planting? And I think that's more important than any. I mean, as much as I would love to have like a very full bank account and, all the materialistic things that I desire, but the reality is what's the most important is what we're doing for the eternal place, not our eternal bank accounts, not our, um, I don't know, whatever the word is, real bank accounts. um and sitting at the feet of Jesus. What seeds are we planting? What are we doing to serve others? What's our heart look like? Because our hearts are, they're just so, their hearts, they're a mess. That's what I think. So I
Yeah,
think a lot
no,
of things come down to like our heart issues.
oof, that yes, it's so funny because most times when we won't go there on this particular podcast episode, but most times tithing, money, everything tied to money is usually a
Mhm.
heart issue.
Mhm.
And most everything is a hard issue, right? And like I said, thanks to
Yeah.
God, my heart has improved. It's still human. It's still pumping, it's still pumping blood, so it's still not perfect. But I think the next thing too is like really where is our faith when the missed opportunity comes? So when you're in your career and I think that number one, we have to give ourselves grace, right? Because what God wants for us, He will give us, right? So for me, my immediate emotion was I had conviction, and I think conviction is good. And we talk about this all the time. I think conviction is
Mhm.
necessary. So I think it's good. And I jokingly said, and it's kind of weird sounding, but I said to Jordy, I said, I feel like that was another whooping. Like, I feel like my father's whooping me. And he's like, there's been 3 or 4. And I'm like, you have my attention. So I feel like it was a whooping and there was some conviction needed where it was like, I could have done these things better. Right. So I think when the missed opportunity comes, it is important to be self reflective. It is important to have conviction. Right. But then I think it's also important to have grace and then to really remember that what he wants for us, he will have for us. And then that turns into faith, right? The faith component.
Mhm.
Because here's the deal, regardless of my works, I could do all the things wrong. And if God wants me to have it, he can still deliver it. But I could do all the things
Yep.
right. And if it's not meant for me, right? So we will drive ourselves crazy, especially as women, I feel like, especially as women. It was so funny because as I was going through the emotions, there was like, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 people who number one knew I was working on the opportunity for years, right? So there was like 5 or 6 people that I text, and it was interesting to see all the different emotions because there was 1 or 2 women, one that was just like a little more like dang chill, like another one that was kind of emotional, like what? And then it was funny because my newest business partner, um he's a guy and I text him and I spoke to the significance of the miss and he was like, yeah, I mean that sucks, got to keep trucking. And I was just like, it's so funny how men process so differently than women, right?
Oh, so different. Yeah. It's so different.
So
They
different.
have a lot less of feelings and emotions in their decision-making process.
Yeah,
Yeah. They're very
100%.
simple.
Yeah.
Very, very simple.
Well, and I
Yeah.
think though, I've said this before on our podcast. I crave that simplicity. My soul craves it. And here's something else that I had like a different thought, Crystal. I've never had a thought like this. And I've been having this thought a lot. This thought has been echoing all of 2023. So I've been walking away from different things. And I walked away from another business that I had similar to you. And I knew that there was a good chance that that pivot would bring, that separation and the pivot would bring success for the company. Not because of, I just knew that there would be new motivation, there would be new thoughts, new strategy, new things, and I knew it would be good for both sides, right? But then, of course, as it goes through, you kind of ask yourself, like, was that another missed opportunity? Should I have stayed on the ship, before this happened or that happened? And it's so funny because with that situation, with this situation, with a handful of other situations, you know what I keep thinking? Did I even want it? Did I want it, and do I need it? Like, yes, financial security is so important. It's so important. And
Mhm.
I was just driving up the hill from my mom's house to do our podcast to my house. And I was thinking to myself, Crystal, yeah, of course, I want to be a good steward and I want to leave the next generation better. But why in my head do I think that success of how I leave the next generation is solely financial? Why do I feel that I have to leave financial wealth in order to have done well by the generations to come? What if I leave a mindset of simplicity and spending time at God's feet and being able to live a life that's so simple that you need very, very little means? Like, why isn't that our natural thought process to leave?
Yeah. Like for me with I grew up with my parents worked a lot, and so I wanted to show up. I had to rewrite my definition of success. My definition of success, like coming into adulthood and then getting married and having children and then going into leading the businesses that I've led and doing the things that I've done. I had to rewrite it because I was never achieving what I thought success was, but I wasn't even headed in that path. I didn't work in a corporate world, right? I was a real estate agent and things like that. And so I I literally had to sit and take time and say, okay, what's important? And then rewrite that whole definition of success and then come to like looking back at from now what I look and see what my definition of success is in my own version. It's completely different. It is spending that quality time with God. It's being able to be present for every one of my kids activities. I mean, like maybe not every single one, but like 99% of them. That was important to me. And then having the flexible schedule and those kinds of things. um and it really had nothing to do with like a title. It didn't have anything to do with how much money was in my bank account. Now I want to rewrite it and be like, can I have a lot of money in that bank account? Because what was I thinking? No, I'm just
Right,
kidding.
right.
But I wanted to be, it was more important to be, a present mom than not being there for my kids. And so, but I had to rewrite it. So now I'm in a new season where it's time to rewrite that definition of success and the goals and different things, because I'm basically an empty nester and I don't have grandkids, thank God. I'm not ready yet. My kids are very young still. They're children. Now they're 18 and 19, but just we have to rewrite our definition of success, and at different times I think it's different. But I think that being more simplistic and then leaning into God more and listening to him and having that quiet, it changes us. And that's that fresh perspective, that new perspective he renews and refreshes us. And so I think the deeper we get into our relationship with him, I think that it changes things.
Yeah.
So that's probably where, the conviction's from.
I think that one of the powerful things that you said there, I mean, you said several, but one of the most powerful things was rewriting that definition of success. And I think that
Mhm.
that's so important because I think that we as a world have adapted like the motivational quotes about like, don't compare your middle to somebody else's end, or don't compare your beginning to somebody else's middle. So I think we as a world have kind of adapted the notion of like not comparing, right? But I
Mhm.
think that we as believers need to take that a little bit deeper, right? And I
Mhm.
actually just shared a post yesterday on my Instagram about like this season, right? This season, I think, conviction, I talk about conviction a lot, but it looks different for everybody. And I think the holiday season can be tough because I think even as Christians, sometimes we see each other shaming, like, oh, well, you do Santa or you don't do this or you don't, whatever the thing is, like, right? Everybody has an opinion on how it should be done. And I think in actuality, what is beautiful is that God knows a heart that's in pursuit of him, right? And he knows the season for that heart that's in pursuit of
Mhm.
him. So I think what I really loved about what you said is like, you were talking about like I have to reevaluate my success. Well, really, that's a season of success. And I
Mhm.
think that if we are in pursuit of God, he will change the seasons. He will allow the seasons
Mhm.
of success to change and that they will look differently. And I love that you shared that, because I've struggled with it, because as a career woman, I've had a handful of people that I've mentored, and that, that I've helped them to get into the business. And then some of them, they've surpassed me. And then their life, like, it played out differently. The knowledge that they had at such a younger age, and then the financial wisdom that they had at such a younger age, they've been able to do such a really good job laying this healthy financial foundation and this investment foundation, and the retirement is going to look great, and it's going to look great. And then, here I am, 40 and floundering. Is that a thing? 40 and
I mean, I'm
floundering.
in it. I'm with you. I'm with you.
We should make that a thing, because here I am, 40 and floundering, and like trying to figure all things out. And that has made me feel diminished. It's made me feel bad, because it's like, man, yeah, like if I could go back, I would do it this way. And then, there's been these seasons of chaos in my life where it's like, if I could go back to my children's childhood, I probably wouldn't have wanted that season. But then I have to stop, because that's where our human remorse and regret and questions come in, right? And I have to remember that, like, I didn't do in who I am today would do a lot of things differently. But I said yes, Crystal. I said yes to the people that needed a home. I said yes to the people that needed a family. I said yes to a lot of things. And yes, it derailed me, and it hindered me, and I wasn't equipped. Like, part of me wanted to just scream from the
Oh
rooftop.
God.
Who the heck
Yeah,
thought
let's talk.
I was
That could be a whole nother podcast.
right?
I was not equipped. What was
I was
God thinking?
I wasn't equipped. I wasn't equipped. And then he gave me like all of these special needs at once. And I was like, who gave the unequipped woman that was like just trying to get her own life together, like 50 other people to deal with, right? But it just goes back to like remembering the seasons and not comparing the seasons, and just pursuing God with all that we have, right? And taking comfort in the fact that he is the ultimate redeemer, right? He can recoup, he can recover, he can regain, he can retrieve anything that's lost if that's what he wants for us.
Yeah, but think about like, so I mean, I know that there's a lot of comparison, it's human nature to do the comparison thing. That you might not think that your life is as successful as you would like it to be, but how many other people look at your life and do the comparison thing? Oh my
Yeah.
God, like she does so much. She's so amazing. She's such a good mom. She's a really good grandma. She's so involved and she has a successful business. I mean, and it's our own, we like our human brains are what does it, right? Like we limit ourselves and we put ourselves in these boxes, and it's really just our own thoughts that drive us crazy, right? They're just and it's not, it's really just lies from the enemy. There's not
Oh yeah.
truth in that, because it goes
It
right
goes
back
back
to
to
what's the definition
distraction.
of success. What?
It goes right back to the enemy's number one tool, which is distraction.
Distraction. So he's got you thinking like you suck, but you don't,
Right.
and I mean, and it's the same for me. I have a lot of the same things going on, and I have a lot of the same different but same things, like the people, the distractions, the family, the
Right.
helping anybody that needs help, all that stuff, right? But like if you look at the things, the seeds that we've planted and the fruit that's come from those seeds, like it is so beautiful to see what both of us have been able to do. But then we have to go back and remember, if our hearts are for God and we're doing things for Jesus, it looks different. It's not going to be the same as somebody that is not Jesus centered.
Oh, so
So
good. So
we are
yesterday,
living our definition of success.
yeah, that's so
Well, I
good.
mean, God's definition of success for us, not our own.
Right. Our
Let's be clear.
that's so good. Yesterday, another thing she said was, how many of us today as Christians in modern America actually live, right? Scripture tells us to look, for our lives to not look anything like the world. How many of us really can look at our life and be like, oh my gosh, our life looks vastly different, especially in modern America. Like it really doesn't, right? Like it really doesn't. And like, what are our pain points, our struggles, like what church service are we going to go to? Like this week, I got up for the early service, and so I
All
love
the kids came. I mean, there's, yeah.
Right? So, but I love that you're saying that, right? Because I do think we need to be really aware of these things, and I think that we have to transform our thoughts, and that should be an ongoing prayer every single
Mhm.
day over ourselves and over our home and over our children. Is to
Mhm.
transform the thought process to be the thought process of God and not the thought process of the world, right? Um,
Mhm.
because really, what I want our listeners to take from this podcast is, you know, I there's every missed opportunity has a lesson to be learned, but nothing that God has for us won't come to us, right? And
Mhm.
furthermore, I really, it goes back to that speech and that talk that I gave a couple months ago. Whose race are you running? Like, why were you
Right.
going for that opportunity? Something I've really wrestled with. Because I, like you too, Crystal, I'm kind of, I'm a little bit older, so I'm trying to put an accelerator, some gasoline on like the retirement. Um, but I've had to have questions and conversations with myself because I goal set and I build out these numbers and I'm like, wait, why do I need those numbers? Why do I need them? Right? Like, why
Mhm.
do I need them? And so I think that the next thing too, I guess it's just it's kind of on my heart right now to just share too, in case one of our listeners need to hear it, is that finances, your value, your worth, your legacy, none of those things are tied up with finances. None of those things are tied up in the finances, right? Not to
Nothing.
say that we're not called to be good stewards. We obviously are called to be good stewards of God, and of every opportunity and of his money. And so I'm not saying that there isn't a sense of accountability and conviction that needs to go alongside this. But I am saying that there is not a financial metric. It is, as to your point, it is 100% a heart condition. What is your
Mhm.
heart doing? How often is your heart pursuing God? How often is your heart sitting with God? How often are you just sitting there and allowing him to flow into you, right? How often are you learning that most things aren't about you? One of the biggest transformations that God did inside of me was the ability to learn that even adoption that was such an unexpected thing for me, that came with so much expectation once I did it. It wasn't about me. It was about me being a conduit for God's work.
Mhm.
And I had to remove my expectation around that. And when we can
Right.
remove the expectation of what things should look like and we can just allow God to flow into us and through us, that is the game changer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's allowing us to be the vessels for God, whatever God's
Mhm.
calling us to do. And it doesn't look like what the world thinks it looks like. It's completely different. I mean, I do things and people are like, "What are you doing? You're crazy." And
Right,
I'm like,
right.
"Yeah, well, God told me to do it, so I'm just sitting in that." And yes, I am crazy. I agree. I can't argue that, but it just out of that pure obedience. And um I'd love to say like it all works out always and it's amazing and beautiful, but that's not reality. Life is messy and crazy and messy and crazy.
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
especially when we do things for God, it doesn't look like what the world thinks it should look like. And people judge and people, criticize, but it's because they're not in that same place. And so we have to understand that when we start shifting and doing things more for the purpose of God, that it's not going to look like what is normal to the rest of the world. And then that might mean our bank accounts aren't full. It might mean or it could mean our bank accounts are abundantly full. Like it could be
mhm,
either way. It just depends what God's path has for us, and living in that place of true surrender and his peace and all of those things that he promises us. I don't know. I have a much more peace filled, like inner peace filled life now in living in that surrender
yeah,
place than I ever did trying to live what I thought was supposed to be normal.
yeah.
Um,
I agree.
so
Well, and I will say, I mean, I don't very often have anything great to say about the way that the world is going, but I will say it's going in a direction that as believers, it's getting easier and easier to recognize that we're supposed to go the opposite. So it is getting a little clearer that we can live like different than the world, because it's becoming much
right.
more clear, black and white.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
just I wanted to share before we wrap up today, especially since I'm thankful you jumped on here with me live from Portland. Is it raining there?
No, it's actually been nice here.
Oh, really? How funny. It's like raining here and so hard for me. I don't know if anybody else battles with this, but on like if I could which we all have responsibility and we all have things to do. So this isn't a reality, but like if I could just have like my dream life, it would definitely be a lot of rain, a lot of home, a lot of calm, a lot of peace, a lot of decorating, crafting, probably all the things people would never imagine of me.
Yeah,
Um,
I would not want the rain. I just want all the sunshine.
no,
I
I love
like
sun. I mean,
water, so, like, I love being
every once
at the lake.
I will say something. Sorry, I think we have a little bit of a lag, so I'm like talking over you. I apologize.
No.
I will say in the last year, I have felt the need for sunshine. Never in my life have I felt it, but like in this last year, I'm like, okay, I need the sun for like a day or two. Like I need to feel it on my skin. I need it. So I don't hate the sun as much anymore.
I love the
um,
sun. I absolutely love
yeah,
it.
I know, but you do much better in the sun than I do. Okay, so a
Yes,
couple
yes.
things. John 5:14. I think this is a good one to pray over the open door. So just when there is that opportunity, praying over it. So another thing in hindsight, to give you value from our learning lessons, is that a lot of times there's been an opportunity that I've been excited about, I've been wanting it, I've been working for it, and then it does or doesn't come to fruition, and I kind of have to wonder what God's will was on it because I forgot to pray over the open door. So that's a good verse to use to pray over the open door. Proverbs 16:3 is a good verse. Commit your works to the Lord and your plan will be established. So that commitment, right? Should that commitment happen, that's another one to pray really good over it. Psalms 84:11, for the Lord, God is the sun and the shield, and he gives glory, grace and glory, right? And so I think that that's another good one. And then the last one I'll leave you guys with today is Timothy 1:7. So kind of like the no fear door, right? So the no fear door, because what we want you to take as our listeners here too is go after everything, go after big opportunities, dream big. No, God, we serve a God that is so big, so almighty. Like nothing is impossible, but make sure you're pursuing it because number one, it's your race and it's applicable to your season and your season that is tied to your pursuit to Jesus. Right?
Mm,
It's applicable to
mhm.
your season and the season that is tied to your pursuit of Jesus. Nothing else, right? Not your
Like
husband,
that.
not your next financials, not being the top producer of the year,
Mhm.
not even being the mom of the year, not even being the mom you think your kids need. It needs to be tied to the pursuit of Jesus, right? And so we want to leave you with these tactical steps. We want to hear what opportunities you might have. So if you're watching one of our
Mhm.
live streams, which we are now also live streaming on Instagram, so
Ooh,
if you're
fun.
watching one, yeah. So if you're watching one of our live streams, drop a comment. Let us know. Did you have it? Are you pursuing an opportunity? Did you recently miss an opportunity? Is there an opportunity now? You clearly look back and you're so thankful that was a missed opportunity. Talk to us about this. We want to hear this. We want to pray for you. We want to know how to, help you to walk this out. If you are not yet in our community, the Saved and Sassy Society, get over there. We've been talking about it a lot, but coming in 2024, we're going to be doing a lot more in that community. So if you're not on Facebook in our closed Saved and Sassy Society, make sure you jump on over there. And if you're catching us on a podcast, you can listen to us anywhere that you get your podcasts. And please, please, please do us a huge favor and give us a review. We are in the building stages, and this is one of those things. This podcast is one of those things where we're saying yes and stepping into obedience. And I have to chuckle a little bit because I've had a lot of opportunities and work projects and things. And the one thing that I seem to be becoming increasingly more disciplined in and showing up on is my non-paid podcast. This one right here.
It's
So
actually really funny. Somebody just asked me because I have another podcast, and they're like, "Well, with these podcasts, do you make any money?" And I was like, "No, nothing. I got nothing." Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, being obedient to God. Like,
yeah. Well, I will give you one. I'll give you a
please,
win to
God.
wrap up with. I'll give you a win to wrap up with. Two wins actually. I had jumped on a call with a gal last week or the week before and had a great conversation. And it was like, she's like, I feel like I know you totally. I have been binging your podcast. And she was talking about our podcast here. So that was a huge
Aw.
win for me. Oh my gosh, my heart just kind of exploded. Thank you, God, for giving
Mhm.
us a listener. No, obviously
It's
we're very
just the
thankful to
one.
have but no, funny enough, so there's been many. And so last week I was speaking with a business partner out of Arizona who was connecting me with another gal, and she wants to connect on the real estate component, but she said she has been listening to your podcast and already loves you and knows you and wants to do this. So just I want to wrap this up with gratitude, because this is a
Mm,
perfect example of an opportunity that was so God is so funny. My like the puzzle's all clicking right now. Like how ironic that he gave me this topic of opportunities. And as I'm wrapping this, we said yes to this opportunity with zero expectation. And this
Mhm.
isn't at this point, this isn't like a payday opportunity, but man, is it a fulfilling, honoring, humbling opportunity to be trusted with a platform where we get to help women to be emboldened and to rise in their faith and to pursue Jesus
Absolutely.
even deeper. Like, wow, wow.
Absolutely, and to add to the positives, like, this podcast, I actually was talking to my, sister yesterday, and she has listened to this, which is amazing.
Mm,
I was like, "Oh my
love that.
gosh, that's so awesome," like, so we do have listeners,
We do.
just more than one. We have a
Yeah.
couple now, at least that we
We're
know
like
of,
solid three,
and
guys. Guys, you
I
better get
was
on the
I did
bandwagon before it fills up.
I did go to a realtors meeting, and somebody else said basically the same thing and loved listening to it. So, I mean, it is people are enjoying it, so thank you for that feedback because we do need it. I mean,
Yeah.
we like to talk to each other, but we like to know that we're doing something in our community. Um, Even though it's not filling up our bank accounts, it's okay. We're still talking to you ladies and putting out good things and sharing our really awesome convictions and and that's what's important, right? And that's the season God has us in is we're called to die to ourselves and to do things for
Mm,
Jesus, and so
so
this
good.
is for Jesus. So whatever
So good.
that looks like, our obedience, and look at what it's going to do to help others and other women, and that's really what our where our hearts are, is to help others and serve our communities.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Oh, good. That's so good. Thank you, friend. And I will say, guys, let us hear if you would love a Saved and Sassy retreat. So Crystal's first Crystal's hearing about this. But I was working on my annual calendar and it is full for 2024. So I don't know if 2024 can make it happen, but 2025 definitely can. We have an amazing friend in a little town in Texas that I have fallen in love with thanks to her, called Dripping Springs. And her family has a ranch there. And she sent me some pictures and she showed me some of their cabins and she showed me like their fire pit area and she talked about a retreat. And I just feel like that is something that would be so amazing to have our first annual Saved and Sassy Society retreat where we get together, we stay comfy, we're in hoodies, we're around the bonfire, we're praying for each other, we're doing some breakout sessions. I'm rambling after we wrapped up, but I will share this, Crystal. I went to a BreatheWorks event when I was in Arizona, which I had never done. And that was just a very different experience for me. And I was laying there. And obviously there's some things that, don't necessarily line up with my faith and my belief system. And so
Mhm.
it was interesting as I was like laying there and doing the breathing exercises. But then God gave me immediate conviction and was like, you don't need to lay here and have an attitude about this. You don't need to lay here and be like, oh, this isn't what I do, or this isn't, you can lay here and do something else. And so he checked me like he does. And I was like, wait a minute. Like I am always, and I think I shared this with you, Crystal, but I'm always such a loud, I'm like that. I am that loud prayer. I'm around my house and I'm like, God, we're hedge of protection over here and hedge of protection over here. And I'm like, I'm like all over the house. And so I was like, wow, like I could just have quiet time. So I sat there and I laid and I prayed. And as I was laying there, I had this vision of doing something very similar where I was walking around and helping, but not in the sense of like, okay, this is how you breathe, but like, this is how you pray. Like, take this moment to
Mhm.
breathe. Thank God, everything you're grateful for. Take this moment to lay things down at God's feet. And I thought, wow, wouldn't that be so powerful? And I almost, I feel a little crazy, even like putting myself in a position, but like, just what if at a retreat, like we were just sitting there and we were walking through, like laying things at Jesus's feet and just being present with God together as a group. And so,
Mm.
anyways, he gave me that vision and I would love that
Sign me up for
to
that. I wanna help.
good,
I'll help
good.
facilitate that. I wanna help.
Yay! All right.
I'm
So
there. I'm into that.
maybe it will happen in 2024 if Crystal's on board. So let us know, listeners. Let us know if a Saved and Sassy retreat would be something that you'd be interested in. And on
Mhm.
that note, we hope you have a very happy Monday. Bye, guys.